Hi, welcome back to Java for Beginners course from Course Labs. In this video, we are going to talk about classes and objects. Well, a class can be defined as a template. If you look at this image, this can be defined as a class. So if you assume this as a class, this particular entity is going to define how this object should look like. So basically, this particular entity is a class which defines some properties. Now, this object is some physical entity which exhibits the properties that are defined by this class. Right. So similarly, in Java, we have classes and objects. So basically, a class contains some fields and methods. To make use of these fields and methods, we need to create an instance of this particular class, which is known as an object. Okay, so object is basically something that exhibits the properties and behaviors that are defined by the class. So it is as simple as understanding this image. So let's see some examples with classes and objects. If you notice, we have a class here. So I'll first define some fields and methods. So let's say string name. I'm not going to initialize these variables. So basically, this is going to be an integer. Let's say number. And let's create another variable of type boolean. Now, if you notice, we did not initialize these variables. So we did not assign any values to them. So by default, they have some default values. Well, now I'm going to create a method as well. So method is going to be, let's say, display. We want to display these values. Okay, so system dot out dot println, and let's display these numbers, these values, name, and let's display the number. And then let's display the value. Alright, so this particular method is going to display all these values here. So currently we did not assign any values, but let's see how it is going to display the values of these variables. Now, if you remember, every class should have one main method, which is public static void main string arguments. Perfect. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, this particular class has got some fields as well as it has got one method. Now, to make use of these fields and methods that are defined by this class, we need to have an object. Now, let's see how to create this object. Object is basically an instance of this class. So we need to create another variable of type class. So this is an object. So basically, this particular obj is the object. In simple words, this object is a variable of type class, which is mobile. Now, in the right hand side, we need to create some memory for this object. We need to allocate some memory for this new instance of the class. So that is possible using this. So we can just use this new keyword to allocate some memory for this new instance. Now, if you want to use any of these methods or any of these variables, we can actually use this particular object. So let's call this particular display method using this object. So obj space display of. So this is a typical way of calling a method in any language, display of, but in Java we need to do it using object. There are a couple of other ways in which you don't really need to have an object in Java to call a method. We will discuss more about them later. As of now, remember that if you want to use any of these fields or methods that are defined inside the class, we need to have an object, and we need to use that object to use those fields and methods. Right. Now, the beauty of Java programming language is whenever you create this new instance, these variables will actually be initialized to their default values. And for usually for strings, the default value is null, and for integer it's going to be 0, and for boolean it's false. So which means when you're printing these without initializing them with any values, you should see those default values in the output console. So let's run this program and see what happens. Okay, so let's press that, and there you go. If you notice, null is basically the name, which is of type string, and 0 is basically this number, which is of type int, and false is actually coming out of value, which is of type boolean. Right, so this is a typical example of how you can use classes and how you can basically create a simple object that can be used to make use of the methods that are defined inside the class. All right, now let's quickly go ahead and look at the presentation. Now this is the typical scenario that we are going to use throughout this particular Java course. Now mobile is a class, and Samsung, Apple iPhone, and Microsoft, these are basically the objects of type mobile. Now if you take any of these objects, they will have some properties such as operating system, color, size, and similarly you can also have some methods like making a call, locking the screen or unlocking the screen, or switching off the mobile or switching it on, and a couple of other things. So from here onwards, we are going to use this analogy to write Java programs. We're going to have mobile as our class, and when we create objects, they can be Samsung, Apple iPhone, or Microsoft. So that's all for this video. Hope you have enjoyed the concept of classes and objects. In the next video, we are going to see data types. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.